Yep,
Is that
sounds
okay?
good. Yep.
All right, we're good.
All right, if you would please raise your right hand. And do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is true and accurate?
I do.
All right, thank you. Mr. Jorde?
Thank you. Will you please state your name?
It's Barbara Harre.
Oh, sorry. I gave everyone the wrong pronunciation.
And I'm actually a doctor, just to let people know.
Yeah, yep. I was going to clarify that. You are a pediatrician, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So, Doctor, did you cause to be filed in this matter what's known as pre-filed testimony relative to your property in dispute here?
I did.
And if we were to walk through each and every one of those questions and answers, would the answers you gave today be substantially similar?
Substantially, with some probably additional explanation.
All right. And in terms of the additional explanation, are there any particular corrections that you believe are necessary to make the answers given more fully correct than they were at the time?
I didn't see anything that needed to be corrected.
Okay. So in terms of, well, let's do it this way. I would offer Exhibit 531 and I believe 532 and 533.
Any objection to those exhibits being admitted?
May have a summary of what they are.
So again, and this will be the same for pretty much everybody, it's the pre-filed testimony itself, and then it's the her attachments that were filed along with that testimony.
No objection. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no objections, we will admit those exhibits. Thank you.
All right. Were there any updates to your testimony that you believe are necessary that have come to light since you filed it?
More just fuller explanations, and I will leave that as the process rolls out.
Okay, very good. With that, Doctor, I'm going to tender you for cross-examination. Some of the other parties may have questions for you.
And I apologize, Doctor, for mispronouncing your name in the beginning. So
It's my husband's fault.
Okay. Well, Miss Burns and I have the same thing. We spell things differently, and she's got it the easier way. So, all right. I believe, Mr. Whippel, your placard is up first, so we'll let you start.
I guess I'd like to begin with the KMZ again and orienting ourselves with the property. So you don't have a home on this parcel, correct? Is there a residence there?
No.
Okay. And well, first of all, does this appear to be your property? Is that the correct parcel?
Yes.
Okay. And does the proposed route, is that correct to your understanding of where it would cross?
Yes.
Do you know approximately how far the line is at this location from the buildings that we see to the south of the parcel?
I would say that they're probably about half a mile, within a half a mile.
And just to the west of your parcel up the road, where it appears to be closer, do you know how far it is from that residence?
Oh, that's much, much closer. That's probably a few hundred feet.
Could we get a distance there? Does that look like about 450 feet to you? Can you see that?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a least worst or alternative route proposal across the property?
Yes. We had initially the project came out that it would follow an already present easement here. And then when in the negotiations back a couple years ago and talking about it, I expressed that concerns, and if we've got people who are signing easements, why are you forcing us to be a part of this process if we're not interested? Just make sure your line is within the boundaries of the other properties that are okay with having this run through. And at that point, then I received communication that, oh, too bad, we're going to move that and just go straight here unless you talk to me in 10 days, and we're willing to give you $150,000 for that.
So just to clarify, your initial proposal was to move it on to neighbors whom you thought would be more amenable to signing an easement?
It wasn't my proposal. They had it here. That was the first plot that was presented, and there's already an easement for the ethanol plant there. They already have an easement for utility.
Do you know, were you told why the route changed across your property?
I spoke with a gentleman named Tanner, and he there's an attachment with text messages back and forth. I believe it's 24, attachment 24.
I don't know that I need to go all the way into the attachment. Just trying to confirm quickly the details of your discussions. So you don't really have a good understanding of why the route was altered to its present proposed location.
No discussion was offered. It's either you take the money, if you don't, it was like, take the money and maybe we'll talk about this, but this is what we're looking at.
Is there another location on your land that you would propose? Would you prefer to see it go back to the original route?
The original would certainly be less damaging to our production process. I've spoken with them about why aren't we using the county road ditches, which are already easements. And that land is not productive. It's been disrupted and disturbed so many times. Why not use the county road ditches? There's certainly not the population density out in some of these rural areas of Iowa that there would be around, Scott County or Des Moines or Polk County. And no one's been interested until about a year ago. I was contacted by the ethanol plant, and they wanted to run a larger pipeline from the ethanol plant to previously put through pipeline. My family has dealt with multiple pipelines. Through previously placed pipeline, because they needed to expand and have more access to natural gas, which they couldn't access where their site is without getting better a hookup connection. So my father initially fought the Dome pipeline back in the mid-70s, and there was no understanding about any appreciation for property rights in terms of this. And it was I'm not sure if the first one was oil or whether it was natural gas, but the Dome pipeline went through in the mid to the late 1970s on our property, which is
can I stop you?
West.
Yeah, can I stop you there for a minute? Mm-hmm. Does that pipeline run across this?
Not
parcel?
This section, but our farm is just, the other part of our farm is just a little west of this.
So is there any pipeline easement already on the parcel that this pipeline could follow?
No, there's no pipeline on this parcel.
What county are you in?
Chickasaw.
Chickasaw. And how far are you from the nearest town?
We're about 2 to 3 miles outside of the outskirts of New Hampton.
Does New Hampton have a professional paid fire department, or are they volunteer?
I believe they're volunteer.
You talk on page 25 of your testimony a little bit about compensation. And this is a somewhat lengthy portion of your testimony, but if I could just ask you to succinctly state what kind of alternate compensation would you prefer? Instead of a one-time volunteer easement payment, is there another type you would prefer?
The way I understand this whole project is it's going to be government taxpayer funds that will support putting this pipeline in. And then, so the Navigators, the Summits, the Wolves are going to have a monopoly on these pipelines. They will be at liberty to charge the ethanol plants for access to these for this process. And then the ethanol plants are going to do the business thing and pass those costs on to us. I would propose that since if this is really a humanitarian, philanthropic process, that we're concerned about our planet and not money, that those tax credits, these pipeline be put in with those if it has to be, which if there's no reason for it, that pipeline is already put in with taxpayer money, that should go back to the gas pump and be 60 cents lower for us consumers buying the product. That would truly combat inflation, is what it was part of the Inflation Reduction Act.
But in terms of the easement rights and the compensation for that, would you be interested in an annual payment instead of a one-time payment?
I don't need any money. I would like to see this not run, and I would like to see the public actually, where's the benefit to the public? I don't see the benefit to the public. This isn't a public utility. It's a private company that wants to make more money, and it's using taxpayer money that's already my money. And why? So what is the benefit to the community?
You talk a little bit on page 38 of your testimony about economic development. And you talk about counties not being in favor of this project. Perhaps. I think I may be looking at the wrong. Do you have concerns about economic development in Chickasaw County? If the pipeline goes in, does it affect? Have you talked to your supervisors about any zoning ordinances or other economic development regulations?
No, I have not talked to them.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Ms. Colas, I believe your tag was up, and then Ms. Ryan will come to you next.
Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
Could you please put up that map again for me that was on there showing the pipeline property? Okay. Can you please clarify with me where are the existing easements in the along the road in the ditches? Could you use your pointer?
Those are public. Those are public access for utilities. They're understood to be for public purposes, the ditch access. And they're using the ditches to connect their gas line to the other pipeline on our property for additional gas support for their operation.
Okay, I have a question. Along the top, I'm not quite sure where they had originally proposed that. It almost looked like it was on the border of your property.
This is where they already have an easement in 2009 for I'm not sure what the easement is, but there's a red pipe right in that corner area. And this is where the original map that was presented to me showed that the pipeline could potentially go. So, and then later, it became this as kind of the ultimatum. This is This is a dirt road. The bridge is out here, so there's very little traffic on that road. And then over here is another road. There's one house. I'm not even sure if anybody lives in there anymore. So there's practically no homes in this close area if they were to use ditches. And they would have access if something went wrong with the pipeline. Those ditches you're going to have access to all year round. If I have something going through my property here, and I've got, say in August, and I've got 8-foot corn there, where are they going to get access to get to there? Are they going to helicopter in their backhoe and just drop it in that 50-foot? No, they're going to, come through whatever other property I have to get in there. And it's very hard to get just compensation for those damages.
Did you try to negotiate with Summit on changing the route? And what kind of experience did you have with that?
I did. I asked them, why we needed to be involved. If they already have that easement, why can't they already, just add on to their easement? And then I didn't really ever get any conversation back until the changed plan was proposed or given as an ultimatum.
I have a question. On the map, clear to, I believe it's the west, there seemed to be a substantial community. Can you please go over there? No, I'm sorry, the east.
That is the ethanol plant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I see where they want to go. Okay. All right. You indicated that you had experience with natural gas or oil pipes in the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any concerns because of that experience with having a CO2 pipeline installed on your land? What it would do to your land?
Well, can you extend that map over to the west a little bit? Yeah. Okay. This is the road there, and you come down.
And I'm just going to interrupt you for 1 second, just because, for the record, if you can be as detailed as possible, so it's like you're dictating for a patient, and so when we go back to review that record, we can actually have a good detailed record of what we're seeing and what you're saying. So, okay. Thank you.
Is it in the directions that I'm giving right now that you're concerned? Okay, absolutely. All right, so the road comes up here, there's a hill. These are all terraces that my family put in. We did. My dad, we were a green family before people even knew what green was. And then the road comes down here. Here's the railroad track that goes along this area. The highway, no, you don't have to go that far out. Let's see. Because here's our farm, the other part of our farm. That was the homestead. And it is in here that we have the pipelines for the natural gas and oil products. And that's what they wanted to do another line through to connect into that. And I asked, well, are you going to be doing eminent domain on that as well? And they said, no, we can't do eminent domain on that. And so, I'm not interested in working with a company I've had this experience with in dealing with this. And so I said, no, I'm probably not going to be a participating partner in that project. So now they're using the ditches for that. Our county is not exactly thrilled because any time that they're going to do work on that, one of the county people has to be out there and make sure they're doing it correctly, which to me is more reassuring because I don't live on my homestead anymore. I live in Davenport, Iowa, where I practice, and I go back, I'm very actively involved, but I don't have the luxury of day-to-day observation of what's going on. And so I can't monitor what's happening on my property that far away. The farming couple that we crop share with, they do their best, but it's hard to watch when you don't live somewhere.
I noticed that on the other property where the pipeline has already been, that you own, there were several tile lines, it appeared to be. Are there any tile fields in this property?
Yes, there are.
Where are they?
They are old, and I'm not sure that we have maps on them. Yeah.
Well, do you think they might intersect with the proposed pipeline?
Oh, sure. They're going to be. There's also terraces.
Oh.
My dad was awarded a Conservation of the Year award at one point for all the work that he did. We had practically zero soil loss.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Harre. No further questions.
Ms. Colas, I would just like to commend you. That was very good cross-examination. Thank you. Ms. Ryan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Harre. I have some questions about some things in your direct testimony, and I'm going to start on page 3. You indicated that the project is technically owned by the tax-paying citizens of the U.S. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Well, it's the whole driver of it, as I understand it, is the tax credits. Well, those are taxpayer-generated funds. Those are not private income funds from a commercial process, and I know how to run a commercial business.
And then you also used responding to the next question, you used the word burden. And what all do you mean when you talk about a burden?
Objection.
State your objection.
Asked and answered. That is the question in the direct testimony right there on the screen.
I'll rephrase it.
Thank you.
In the last sentence of your answer to that question, you said, all the other negative features. What do you mean by all the other negative features?
Well, it's part of a very poorly thought out plan. There's no long-term benefit that is really appreciable. This is short-term benefit. It's not, the risk is really being shifted off to the taxpayer and to the landowners. It's not taken by the private companies. And so we as a community will be paying for any problems that result from this process. And I think especially we don't have a lot of information about all the facets of this project. It's the largest project that's ever been attempted. We don't know what the process of injecting this carbon dioxide into wells underneath the earth, what's going to happen with that? I mean, that pressure is going to cause changes in the geology down below. So are you going to start to see cracks and this material start seeping up? Is it going to be permeable through the earth? It's odorless, it's colorless. Is it going to become another Superfund site that we're going to have to clean up someday? So we've got long-term things. We don't have any really good research, well-designed research looking at it as to what it's going to do and whether it's going to be effective. The whole issue of carbon in the atmosphere is a hypothesis. It hasn't been proven. We have current numbers of, it's estimated to be 0.04%. What numbers do we have to compare that to 100 years ago, 200 years ago? We don't have any idea what this process involves, what it's going to mean. What are the outcomes? You talk about objective measures. What are we going to see? What do we expect to see? I don't think any of that information is clear. I don't think that there's been honesty about the safety issues with this. There hasn't been honesty about the water. That's become an issue that we just are starting to hear about. My family lives close to IPSCO in Muscatine, and when they put that plant in out in the middle of farmland again, you're going to have, farmers are pretty much sitting ducks. It's harder to get it into a commercial city ordinance, so we're going to go plop it out in the middle of somewhere. And they promised that they were going to use Mississippi River water for that. They didn't. And our water table went down drastically. We had iron that we'd never dealt with. Our clothes came out orange. And so they did, with attention to that and confrontation, they started using Mississippi River water, and our water table has come back up. So what effect is this going to have in our property where the pipeline is going through? There is a sand pit. We're in a geologic formation, and I'm not an expert at any of this, but it's what I've seen, what I've experienced. We have a sand pit, and when they built a Sara Lee factory in New Hampton in the 1960s, they took a lot of the sand for their foundation out of our sand pit. That's not really underground water. That's surface water. It's also close to the top. So what is going to happen if there's an incident with that pipeline to that water? The families that live up along that road have wells. How is that going to impact their health and drinking water? I'm not in personal risk for complications from this line, but I care about my community. I'm a physician. I'm not out to hurt people. And what is that going to do to those families who are going to have absolutely probably no warning? What's it going to do to their property value when they try to sell their land? My brother had one time wanted to build a cabin near our sand pit. We're not even going to try that. It's just too risky. Similar situation to what Janet has. And so there's just so many things. It's going to devalue our land if we ever want to sell it. We already have electric high power lines going through part of that land where the pipeline is projected to go through, and we're limited as to how we can use land around those. And then we're going to have another thing that we have no control over. Those are all risks that we take, that the company has no interest in sharing any of that burden with us.
And as a physician, do you have any specific concerns about, how it might burden your community?
Objection.
State your objection.
Asked and answered.
Ms. Ryan?
I don't believe she's answered that. She mentioned concerns and she mentioned she was a physician, but I want to know if there's more, from her medical perspective, does she have any more specific concerns?
I believe the question was, can you elaborate on what you mean by all the other negative features about it? And the witness gave an approximate 3-minute answer to that.
Going to overrule this and let you continue from the medical perspective.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. I heard that they were talking numbers like, a few hundred feet, but I saw in some of the reading material that that's not accurate. For a 6 to 8 inch line that can travel 1,800 feet, 2,000 feet, how fast does that travel? What's the wind doing at the time? All those extraneous weather features are in play. And so, it's impossible to predict what that's going to do to people in the area. And even going north of town, they should have a concern within the town, the urban area, about what that could do. And I'm also a medical examiner in our county, and we do not routinely have hazmat suits when we go into things. And people will need to be specially trained for that and have that material on hand. So that's going to cost the county more money for training and to have that material. And if you don't use it for 5-10 years, you're going to have to buy new. I don't know what it is, but you're going to have to buy new material because it's going to be outdated. Are you going to have people who know how to do rescue for this sort of thing? Whether it's out in the rural area where the time for response is going to be much shorter than in town. In town, you expect in our city a 3-minute response time to get to the scene. That's not possible out in a rural community with a volunteer setup. You're not going to get somebody there in 3 minutes. And the personnel and staff change in these situations. So the training has to be constant for a what-if situation. And you can't guarantee that you're going to contain a problem with that pipeline by your computer sensors and all that. We all know that things don't always go to plan, and it's absolutely dishonest to say that there isn't the potential for an error somewhere. And what if that sensory stuff does not work and you have more than 20 miles involved because it doesn't contain it, it doesn't stop? It could be a real potential large-scale disaster.
I want to move on. On page 5 of your testimony, you use the phrase riparian buffer. Not being a landowner myself, I wonder if you could explain to me what that term means.
Yeah, a riparian buffer strip is a grass and tree combination that is put in place for about 150 feet on each side of a stream. It controls erosion. It leaches out nitrogen from fertilizer runoff before it gets into your stream. So looking at trying to decrease erosion and nitrogen spillage into water to decrease our water quality, so we're not contributing as much downstream to the Gulf issues. We put our riparian buffer strip in our Cedar County farm that we are close to and we have access to. We put that in as a family in 1999, and it is just an amazing project. And we actually had to go in and thin trees, but it's just the water. We've got a feedlot north of us that is in close proximity to our riparian buffer strip, and we are not measuring high levels of nitrogen, nitrates, things like that. We've got more fish, we've got better wildlife. It's been an amazing project, and this is what we wanted to do in our Chickasaw County project. But I don't know if we're going to be able to if this thing goes through the way it's planned.
And I'm going to guess, given the use of plants and trees, it probably takes a number of years for one of those to become well established?
Well, it depends on your soil and your rain and your weather conditions over the years. We were very fortunate in that as soon as we got done planting our 7,000 trees, it rained. And so we had a wonderful start. I went out and mowed for 3 years, and I started breaking branches. And so they estimate 3 to 5 years of maintenance to give the trees a chance to get growing and all of that. And so we've just been very, very pleased with the outcome of our project in our Cedar County property.
Did I hear you correctly? Did you say 7,000 trees?
7,000 trees. A tree planter. We didn't do it by hand.
Okay. I imagine that kind of work is very expensive then.
Actually, we did it as a family, so labor wasn't an issue. We bought the trees. I think our whole cost was under $5,000, but we did it. We put in our own labor. We did it. If you were to hire somebody, it would be more. But no, this was a family project.
I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
All right, seeing no more. Oh, Ms. Hike, I'm sorry. I, again, couldn't see you through the individuals there, so please go ahead.
Hi, Doctor. I'm Christine Hike. I'm a landowner. You just mentioned your concerns of safety hazards. As a physician, what are the adverse health effects if there's a leak of a CO2 pipeline?
What I understand is it depends on the concentration of the CO2. At even 2%, you've got people getting sick. You start getting over 5 to 6%, you've got mental status changes, disorientation. And if you're getting up 8, 10 and higher, it's death within a few minutes, much faster than our response teams would be able to get out to that area.
Thank you.
Oh, I also wanted to mention on the question about methanol. Methanol is only toxic if it's drunk, and alcoholics who cannot get enough ethanol will drink methanol and they will go blind. That's the biggest complication for that. But from what the other gentleman was saying, if you're not drinking it, it's probably not a lot of toxicity.
Thank you.
Ms. Ryan, do you have some? Nope, no, you're fine, just checking. Any questions? Just quick clarifications. How long have you owned this property, or how long has it been in your family?
Since 1965, 66.
And you stated there's an easement, and that easement is on the north side of the parcel, correct?
Of the parcel that we're talking about at this point, it's north and east. It makes a square.
And you believe that has been there for how long?
Since 2009.
And do you know what utility is in that easement?
Oh.
I don't need to know the company, but is it a gas line, electric, telecom?
Does the color of the cap help?
Yeah.
It's orange.
Okay. So, yeah, okay. And if we can bring up the KMZ map, just so if you could use the pointer, you talked about transmission lines going through the stated parcel. Could you use the pointer and describe using east, west, north, south, where those transmission lines are on this parcel?
Okay. All right. North, south, west, and east. And the transmission line comes along here.
And that would be towards what directional flow?
It would be, I believe the flow of the energy is from northwest to southeast.
Okay, that'll work.
And that has actually been a little bit problematic because those high energy voltage lines, my dad never believed us, but we had electric fence there and we'd have to check that and everything. And we told him we're getting tingling from this. And when I got in college and took my physics classes, that line was setting up a magnetic field that was setting up another electrical current. And so we're already, we deal with that if you've got fencing that you have to work with.
And what kind of wooden pole structures, lattice work, steel structures?
The towers?
Yeah.
A metal of some sort.
Okay, so probably a lattice work type structure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Those are all the questions I have, Mr. Jorde.
Objection, Your Honor. Sorry, Mr.
State
Jorde.
your objection.
I'm just going to object for the record to any witness being redirected after not having been subjected to questions which are from an opposing party and therefore cross-examination. In other words, until they've been crossed, there's nothing to redirect.
Well, this has all been cross. I mean, so I don't know. I don't know what to say. If they could start yelling the questions at her to be angry, and maybe it'd appear more like cross. But it's all been cross-examination thus far.
All right, we will note the objection, but we're going to overrule it. Mr. Jorde, you may continue.
Yes, thank you. Can we pull up 557, please, 557, the Iowa map? I just want to take a quick look at that and then go back to the KMZ for clarification. 557. I think it's also the same as landowner number 1. Great, thank you. And if you could just zoom in on the kind of the top right there where Chickasaw County is, I just want to orientate us. Just one more. Thank you so much. So the star by the W in Chickasaw County in the right-hand corner, that star generally would indicate the ethanol plant that we saw on the aerial, the KMZ aerial. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Okay, so you're very near the ethanol plant, obviously. Okay. Do you know how many miles it is from the Floyd County? Well, yeah, from where the proposed northern branch in Floyd County, that kind of 90-degree angle there. Do you know how many miles it is from that location to the proposed ethanol plant, approximately?
Well, I'm doing this by memory because I think it's 20 miles from New Hampton to Charles City, which is in Floyd County. I don't know where Charles City is in relation to that branch.
Okay, all right. And there's probably a scale on the map and it's in evidence so we could figure it out. But in any event, would you agree that from that Floyd County branch and really, even from Cerro Gordo there's no other plant in between, and so all of those easements are to get to the plant near you?
Yes.
All right, now if we could go back to the KMZ, please. Thank you. And if you could just zoom out just a touch here, please. And just one more to see the ethanol plant there. Thank you so much. Now, Board Member Burns was doing a good job to try to help clarify the record, because sometimes you're saying here, and here, but again, just to be clear, the easement that I think you testified, you said it believed it serviced the ethanol plant. You called it an ethanol easement. Do you know that to be true, or is that just how you think of the easement on the northern boundary of your property?
Well, this is what my brother told me, that it's for, what else is out there to run a utility for?
Okay, all right, but in any event, you hadn't received clarification of why the proposed route is dissecting both fields at a diagonal as opposed to continuing to run across the north how they headed previously.
I suspect very much that my dad had some conversations about the other easement, and that's what led to whatever the utility, that utility coming across here and here. I suspect my dad had some conversations about that to get it to go on that route and not directly through the property as well.
Okay. And is your dad still involved in any of the day-to-day decisions?
My dad passed away in 2013.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. So not that he had talked to Summit about the location of the easement, that the existing easement.
The easement that's already lined here. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yep, that easement was put in 2009, and I was not involved with that directly, but my brother had helped my dad with some of that, and we did find 2009 records at the courthouse. So.
Okay, and just again, we're talking about the existing easement across the total northern boundary of your potentially affected parcels and half of the eastern boundary.
Correct.
Okay.
That was the previous one.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. You had made a statement, a concern about that it's hard to get just compensation. I think that was in reference to potential future crop loss. Do you understand that in the easement they offer to pay damages? Is your concern about the process of being able to try to ever get justly or fully compensated, or what was your concern there?
So many of the problems that go along with these practices are not always tangible, and it's like, if I don't see a problem now, I'm not going to pay for it. And my dad fought. He got payment for 15 years. The first line that went through our property went through in the late 1970s. The second line went through in 1999. So what started out to be a 50-foot easement is now a 120-foot easement. And we, once something goes through, you have no control. Somebody can come and say, hey, we're just going to follow that and put something else in along that line. So, and over that, that active the two active lines that are there, that property, we are almost 50 years out, and we are still having a 30% decrease in productivity over that area. So this idea of just compensation for 1 or 2 years is completely unrealistic. And then you've got interference with tile lines, you've got individuals going in to repair things, and nobody wants to walk. They want to take 4 or 5 trucks in to drive to where they want to go. And so, and it's not usually convenient for the landowner. I know they try to do things more in the spring and fall, but, it's like, no, you guys can walk or take one vehicle. You don't need to take a caravan to get there.
In your medical experience, do you have any experience with the effects of asphyxiation on either children or humans in your experience as a physician or a medical examiner?
Not CO2, but carbon monoxide, yes.
Okay, but if the symptoms of asphyxiation, regardless of source, you're familiar with those?
Yes.
And are you, is it true that children with less developed respiratory systems are more susceptible to injury by asphyxiation given a constant concentration than an adult?
It's not just the respiratory, but the lack of oxygen to the brain is the big thing. The carbon monoxide replaces attaches to places where the oxygen would attach to, and so if it was just lung, like ammonia, when you breathe that in, that causes terrible lung damage and esophageal damage from those people working like nitrogen and those sorts of things. But the asphyxiation is due to not enough oxygen getting to the brain, and so it's brain death. And you're also air hungry, and most people go to sleep, so it's not identified to be such a painful death, but they become vulnerable and incapacitated to care for themselves, and so instead of being able to get out of that situation, they succumb.
And then lastly, you made a statement relative to concerns about property value decreasing. Would you purchase land that had a CO2 pipeline on it?
Would I purchase land?
Right.
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I don't, I'm just trying to think here. Oh, one final question. Based on the testimony that you've heard since you filed your pre-filed testimony, that deadline that's occurred during this process, these hearings, is there anything you take issue with that Summit has stated beyond what we've already discussed?
I'm just going to look at some notes that I had to see if there's something else. There is no research that shows that these carbon capture projects have benefited the environment. They actually show that there's been more carbon put into the environment, and that's research out there. I wanted to share with the audience a statement by Dr. Vernon Smith, who's a Nobel laureate in economics, and he got the Nobel Prize in 2002. And there's a lot of concern that we're not we don't get good information. And it's really hard to make good decisions when you have bad data. And that increases the risk for everybody. But he made a statement, when you censor the free exchange of ideas, you deprive people of the information they need to judge and learn for themselves. And you prevent bad ideas from being challenged. And that, I think, is huge in this process, that it's been, if you don't accept this hypothesis, if you don't go along with this, you're a bad person, you don't care about your community, you don't care about your country, you want more money than they will do, and it's not that. This project is not well planned out. There's no long-term data on its effectiveness. This would not be a good business model, and yet we're supposed to roll over and say, go ahead and do this, and we all care about our community, and that's not what we're arguing about. And I know we're not arguing, but that's not what we're trying to state our beliefs, our experience on, is that this is taking private property for a plan that really has no well-documented benefit. And when you don't have good information, the outcome is not generally going to be good.
Thank you. I don't have anything further.
All right. Ms. Harre, you may step down. Thank you. All right, Mr. Jorde, I believe you're next.